Good morning, MotoAmerica fans. Welcome to another edition of Off Track, which is MotoAmerica's weekly podcast. I'm Paul Carruthers, the communications manager, and I do the podcast with Sean Bice, who's my cohort, and Sean helps me with everything from social media to public relations at the track and media relations and all sorts of stuff. And you guys obviously know him if you're fans of the show, that he's a big contributor and he likes to talk a lot, so he's the perfect guy to have on a podcast. But how are you today, Sean?
Good. I was going to say I help you in pretty much every way, but I won't do your laundry or wash your windows. But I'm doing well.
Yeah, I'd have you live with me if you could do that.
Yeah, and you don't want that, believe me. I'm not even sure my wife wants that sometimes, but she has to put up with it. So, yeah.
So
Hey, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say a couple more weeks before we have to go up there, I'm going to do the drive up again, and it's not too bad. I look forward to it, and I get to go over and through Indiana and up through Chicago's the toughest part of it. But, like we've said, and the fans have told us, the end of June is pretty much ideal for Wisconsin. So probably going to be even better for our fans that are going to be there than that first round where the fans couldn't be there. So we kind of did them a solid with that deal, I think.
Yeah, and it was kind of weird for me on this one because we made the reservations after the last one at Road America, the plane reservations. Last time was nothing. Planes were half full, tons of flights, very cheap. This one, it was still fairly inexpensive, but the flights were like, I don't want to say non-existent, but they were less so than the previous round. And we're going into Chicago and making the drive over. So.
Oh, wow. That's really good. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit farther, but I think we kind of make it up on this end a little bit, and you can get a direct flight, et cetera, et cetera. So, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to the next round. And one of the reasons I'm looking forward to the next round is we've got something new. We've got a few things new, but today we're going to focus on the MotoAmerica Mini Cup by Motul. It's going to be the first round, obviously, for that series, and it's the debut with the series with MotoAmerica. We had those guys come out to pit race last year and put on a show, and quite a show it was. Everyone seemed to like it. Had a strong entry, a bunch of cool kids, and I was impressed by how well these kids can actually ride.
Yeah, I was too. It was pretty amazing to see that. I mean, it was a cool first chance for us to see those guys, and it obviously planted a seed for us to have this mini cup this year. So it's going to be a cool event. Can't wait.
Well, anyway, on today's show we have Brandon Cretu, and he's basically, I guess he's the man when it comes to this mini cup by Motul. He's going to be in charge of running the program for us. He's, I believe, co-owner of Rise Moto, which is the Ohvale importer. The series uses Ohvale motorcycles, which if you haven't seen them, they're like scaled down little MotoGP bikes. They're really cool. We actually have a MotoAmerica version that's been all painted up that we'll have on display. But yeah, they haven't let me ride it yet because I think the whole idea behind the bike is to have it nice and be on display rather than me wreck it. So maybe at the end of the season they'll let me take it for a spin. But Brandon, welcome to the show. It's nice to have you on board.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Thanks, Sean. I'm happy to be on and excited to talk about what we're doing.
Well, right off the bat, we're going to play dumb, and as I mentioned before we got started, that we're actually not playing dumb because we are kind of dumb when it comes to this. But give us a breakdown on exactly what the Mini Cup by Motul is and what its goals are, and the amount of entries and just some basic information that we can let our fans know about as we head to the series opener.
Yeah, so basically it's an Ohvale spec series designed around providing youth a structured environment to enter into the sport of road racing. It's I want to say it's a cheap way to get into road racing, but we all know that road racing is never going to be cheap. So it's all relative. This is a way for people to get involved where the bikes are, for all intents and purposes, ready to race when you buy them. You have to there's very minimum you have to do to make them legal for MotoAmerica. So parents that aren't maybe necessarily mechanically inclined or know a bunch about, buying a bike and converting it, and having to buy a bunch of stuff to make it a proper race bike, this kind of helps that barrier to entry. And the other thing is, we use, spec sealed engines that we can police and maintain throughout the season, to kind of keep the parity between competitors, so people aren't going out and spending a lot of money on, engine modifications and things that ultimately, at this point in a rider's career as a young rider, that's not the important part where they need to focus. We need to focus on, talent showing through, kids showing what they can do without, parents wasting a bunch of money on engines and, things of that nature. So that's kind of the general idea of it. And growing the sport as a whole, ultimately all these riders are eventually going to grow out of an Ohvale, to a certain extent. Obviously, MotoGP guys use the small bikes to train. Pro riders use them to train, like, MotoAmerica's and Josh Herron has a couple. So maybe they not grow out of it is the wrong word, but they move on to bigger bikes, bigger things. And, this is in my mind, this ultimately helps the sport, helps everybody, helps the big manufacturers, helps MotoAmerica because it feeds these young riders into the sport, and creates more opportunities and more exposure for them, more exposure for the sport, which is good for everybody at the end of the day. So, I think overall, the reception of, what we're building, what we're doing has been, pretty fantastic, like across the board, besides just my customers, like, also people in the industry that, maybe don't have any involvement with it, or, we're slightly maybe a competitor, not really a competitor, but other manufacturers that don't make a bike like that. But, people have been pretty supportive of it because I think they see that it's more of a way to help the sport as a whole, and the kids will get fed up into the bigger bikes, eventually. So ultimately, that's kind of the goal here is to create opportunities and, help everyone at the end of the day.
Brandon, I'm pretty fascinated with the mechanical aspects of these bikes. Can you talk about that a little bit? Really, the different displacements and the fact that some of them are twist and go, some of them are transmissions. And I want to add to it that I am a longtime owner of a pretty pristine YSR 50.
Oh.
And I remember those were like the thing to go to if you went on a kart track. And a lot of road racers would say they did their first road racing on those. But man, I mean, not to disparage my beloved motorcycle, but you look at the spec of YSR 50 versus those Ohvales. I mean, those Ohvales are unbelievable. The way the frames are, the upside down suspensions on them. I mean, the aero exhaust. Those things are amazingly cool and very upscale for what you get. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so Ohvale was kind of for a long time there. Once the YSR 50s kind of went away, and then Honda, I think Honda still actually makes the NSF 100, but it's only in Japan. It's not very common. There's still old ones floating around here and there. There was like kind of a break for a long time from any manufacturer making like a really high quality, small sized motorcycle. And then Ohvale kind of saw that as an opportunity, and then they developed this kind of new platform with the 10-inch wheels, which weren't really a thing before this. And Ohvale, to give people some history, has a long history in the motorcycle industry. They're actually a design and development firm, and so they build like the prototypes you would see at places like EICMA, of like a concept bike. That's what they do. That's like their original, that's their original business model. And they do design and graphics and like graphic design for large manufacturers. Like, I mean, you name it, they've done work for it, whether it's, Kimco or Harley or Honda or whoever, they've done work for everybody. So they're pretty well respected in the industry and pretty well known. So when they entered this market, they were able to kind of tap into those, relationships and those, the experience in the industry and, get people like Aero to make exhausts for them, work with, manufacturers that make stuff for other large manufacturers to make their stuff. Actually the fairings are made by the same factory that makes the fairings for Ducati, from like the OEM fairings. So they pull from a lot of that experience and are able to build, super high quality, proper miniature race bike. The head engineer actually used to work for Aprilia's racing division. So, they have that experience as well, where, they have a guy who's, used to design and Aprilia race bikes, with their MotoGP program and the race division. Now he's helping design and update the Ohvale GP0 chassis. So they're pulled from a lot of experience, and they're able to use that to create a super high quality motorcycle, which comes in the one, like, so what you just mentioned. You have like the gas and go, like the 110 automatic, which is basically just no gears, no clutch. It's a way for kids to get on and really learn how to ride a bike, as opposed to like also learning how to use a clutch and shift gears. Those are really popular in Europe. The automatic, as a way for like youth to get in, like maybe coming off of really small bikes or like 50s, and get on like the first GP chassis that they ride. In America, they haven't really taken off as much yet, because a lot of kids do start off on like CRI 50s, TTR 50s, or bikes like that. So, and I'm not in a, I'm trying to enter it where I think we can be the most effective. And I think those bikes provide a good starting platform for kids. So I don't compete too much in that area. So where we come in mainly is the 110 4-speed, the 160, and the 190, which, provides like a stepping stone for kids to, get some experience from engine sizes on the same chassis, so they can start to experience more power, and how to properly deliver that power without crashing. It's just learning the application of power and handling of the bike and everything. So it provides a good stepping stone for kids, and it provides a structured, each different CC provides different classes for kids to grow into as they become more skilled and better riders.
Okay, so if I have a kid, for example, that's like he's a little motocross kid, and he races that, and I'd like him to try to try road racing. Is there any kind of like a rental program or something that you could ease it yourself into, or is it just a purchase deal?
No, so we've worked with pretty much every mini organization in the country. So this was one of the things when I got involved, that I wanted to provide people, like parents and kids, access to these like all over the country, because number one, it's a really new thing for the American market. Like these, like, in this day and age, the mini GP type chassis, like right now, parents and kids are used to riding like converted dirt bikes, like a TTR 125 or Honda CRF 100 or whatever, which are great training tools and great bikes to get people involved, but they kind of lack the appeal, I like to say, from an outsider looking in, of like, okay, I want to watch, kids obviously want to ride what they see their idols riding. Like if I see Rossi riding a MotoGP bike, like I want to ride something that looks like that. And people watching outside looking in, like when you watch the kids on the Ohvales, it looks like a little MotoGP race. So these not only provide like the look and the appeal of what people want to see when they watch racing, but also the performance part of it. So I wanted to make that accessible to everybody, because it is so new. So I partnered with like pretty much every mini organization around the country, and I have demo bikes seated with them. So if a parent or someone goes to those organizations, they're able to, whether it's see them in person and just sit on them, or like rent them for a day, or try them out for one session for free. I kind of leave that up to the different organizations, but we basically have bikes all around the country at this moment that people can see and touch and ride and try before they really like dive into it at first.
So, Brandon, back to the mechanics of the bike a little bit. You kind of explained the different sizes. So, for the ones that you said are in the US, it's the 110 automatic and then up through. Tell me about this. Could somebody buy the entry level one? And you said the chassis is the same. So could you literally change engines and upgrade it, or is it better to just get a different bike when you go to the different size?
No, you can absolutely. You could start with the 110 automatic, and then you could upgrade all the way to a 160. The 190 chassis is actually, it was fairly close to the earlier models, in previous years, except it had different mounting points for the engine. But now the 190 chassis for 2020 is actually fairly different. It looks, from the outsider looking in, it would look the same, but it's a fairly different chassis. So it's basically, you can buy a 110 automatic, you can upgrade up to a 160 by just replacing the engine, carb, a couple small things, and then once you're done, once you're kind of grow out of the 160, then it's time to buy a different chassis and buy a 190.
So earlier you had mentioned that Ohvale has a relationship with Aprilia, and it was very cool. Earlier this week, I think it was, where the announcement was made about this Aprilia RS1 or RS250,
Yeah.
which is a 4-stroke, not the 2-stroke that they used to have. Obviously, it's just an Aprilia, but there's a relationship with Ohvale on that. And can you talk about where that bike fits in? Is that kind of the next step up even more? And would you consider that to be a slot before a Junior Cup bike, or about on level with Junior Cup bike? Where does that one fit?
I think you're spot on with kind of where your thoughts were on that. So basically, to talk on the partnership a little bit, yeah, Valley, does work closely with Aprilia. Actually, they do all their design and paint work for all their MotoGP bikes. So the MotoGP bike you see on the grid whenever you see them racing, like Ohvale does the design for it and the paint and the livery for it. So that's how that relationship kind of started. And with this bike, Aprilia and Ohvale worked together on designing it and determining what components were on it and those various things. And now actually, Ohvale is the one that are building the bike, and they're the ones that are managing all the sporting activities. So in Italy, they introduced a spec, basically like an Italian Junior Cup, kind of like, or Italian Talent Cup, I should say. Kind of like you have the Asia Talent Cup or British Talent Cup, which uses the Honda NSF 250, I believe. Along those same lines. So it provides kind of, like a stepping stone from, these small bikes when you're ready to get onto a big track. It's a proper, GP inspired chassis with an engine that's, powerful enough, but manageable enough for still like a younger kid. And it gets someone to the big track where they can really, start to learn the dynamics of riding on a big track. So that's the idea of it, in my mind, and what I'm kind of hoping, working towards is this is a stepping stone class between the Mini Cup and Junior Cup. So, Junior Cup, I believe you can start at 14 or 15, if I'm not mistaken.
14, yeah, you're right.
So, like, this is something I see as, obviously MotoGP, sources and watches riders pretty closely from the various talent cups around the world. Like, in Europe you have talent cups, in Asia and UK I just mentioned, and the US has been lacking that. We have the Junior Cup, which obviously is tons of talented young kids are in it. But I think we're missing one more thing to really round out what MotoAmerica has to offer. Not only competitors, but spectators and sponsors and everything else. And in my mind, this has the opportunity to fill that void for kids. Like, if I were going to, if I was standing in front of MotoAmerica giving my pitch, I would say this is a great class for kids from age 13 to 16 that you do it maybe half the rounds. It's not a full series, like it doesn't follow MotoAmerica to every race, but it follows them to 5 or 6 races, and it allows kids to race on spec machinery that ultimately is a little cheaper than the Junior Cup as far as machinery. And then, if you're doing less rounds, it's a little cheaper. So it gives them, it's not almost like you're giving people tiered ways to get in with MotoAmerica, national level racing, and get involved and just build upon that. And I think this is kind of that stepping stone towards that. And then the kids would obviously move out of this into Junior Cup and then Super Sport and so on.
Okay, so we haven't turned a wheel yet at Road America, but I mean, I don't know how you feel about it, but from looking at it from my standpoint, we've been pretty successful so far. Would you agree? I mean, the amount of entries, et cetera.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think for the first year, it's been a pretty huge success in terms of the amount of the entries that we have. We have a super strong field, and we have quite a lot of competitors. I was just pulling up the registration right now, and I think we have about in the 110 class we have about 10 riders, but the 160 and 190 class we have the 160 class we have almost 20 riders, and the 190 we have like 16 or 18 riders. So yeah, it's quite a full grid. I don't think you could really ask for anything better. I just compare it like in Italy. When we had our event last year, the Talent Cup at Pittsburgh, we had 16 riders in the 160 class, and we had 10 in the 110 class, and then we took the top winners over to Italy to race. And over in Italy, this is an Italian race weekend, but it's only Ohvales. There is no other racing that goes on. It's only Ohvales. There is over 150 entries.
Wow.
And it's just like when we went over there, and I'd been there before, but when these kids and parents were over there, everyone was kind of like, it opens your eyes as to the possibilities. Like, I look at that stuff and I see possibilities of what we can do here, not we'll never be like that. Like, I don't think like that, because I think that, people think like that for too long, and it doesn't help, generate new ideas and bring new things to the sport, like here in America. And I think we have to change our way of thinking, and that we can, obviously, we're doing this year, and we have a really strong entry. So I think people want this, and, we're trying to give people what they want.
Right.
So let's talk about the event itself and what people will see when they're there, Brandon. It's not obviously on the track, the MotoAmerica main circuit. It's a kart track, which makes sense for the size of the bike and everything about it. But tell us about how the whole thing happens. Is there qualifying for the races and the sprint races? How many laps are there? And are there champions crowned in a number of different classes? Tell us about what we'll see when we get to MotoAmerica.
Yeah, so if you make it down to the kart track, you'll basically, the way we structured the event is the same as last year, really, at the Talent Cup. My idea was, okay, let's have an event where it gives the opportunity for the kids to be seen, but also the kids that are coming to also then watch the MotoAmerica races. I didn't want to have an event where we were just like, something on the side that everyone knew was happening, but no one had the time to go watch, and it just kind of got lost in the shuffle. So we have practice on Friday, which is just your basic open practice, and then Saturday, our event is all day Saturday. So we start with practice in the morning, qualifying around lunchtime, or like right after lunch, and then we have heat races in the early afternoon. So the heat races will basically determine the grid for the main events, which will be held at each round in the evening. So starting, I believe it's at 4:30 until 6. That will be then when our main events are for the three classes, which gives, by then on Saturday, per the schedule, the big classes in MotoAmerica are wrapping up. People, obviously the teams have their own things to worry about for Sunday's races, but I feel like most people have, half hour, 45 minutes where they can come down and then watch, these kids and the future of the sport, and support them and watch the races, which happened at Pittsburgh. And we had a really good crowd at Pittsburgh last year watching all the kids race, and the racing was fantastic. So I think, it led everyone to want to, definitely come and watch the kids again, at a place like MotoAmerica, which the kart track is, I think it's going to be really good racing and just really cool to watch, because the kart track's actually a really phenomenal track.
Brandon, I was actually looking up some results and stuff today because I wanted to make sure that I was accurate. But you did race some MotoAmerica races, I think, in 2015 and maybe 2016, and you've also raced Isle of Man and Macau GP, things like that. So you've got a pretty big racing background yourself.
Yeah. I'm kind of like the journeyman racer. I've done a little bit of everything. I did the TT for 7 years and Macau for 4 years, and that was kind of like where I don't know, like where I found my niche, and I did it because I enjoyed it and I loved it. And eventually I just decided that was, I kind of had enough. And I raced MotoAmerica first season, not quite so successfully. It was a difficult season for me. And then after that, I raced World Endurance for 2 seasons. Actually, I still did 2 rounds last year. So yeah, I still stay involved. I still ride a lot. I still I still like to race. I just don't have all my attention, and unfortunately all my money is going into this. So it's just trying to grow this business, and and support the sport and, kind of build what we're doing. So I don't get as many opportunities to ride as I used to, but yeah, no, I've done a little bit of everything. Yeah.
Yeah, Brandon. So without giving away your trade secrets or how it happened, I mean, you kind of touched on why you're doing a little bit, but go into that a little bit more. Why you started it and how you started it. How did you find out about these bikes, and who did you contact and all that kind of stuff? If you don't mind revealing some of
Well,
that.
I mean, I guess speaking to your point when you brought up when I raced MotoAmerica, I was racing for a team and a private sponsor, an individual, and I rode for him. I actually left my full time job, and I had a good job for like 7 or 8 years, and I while I was racing the TT, and he a gentleman came along by the name of Selby Jones. He sponsored our team for a while under the Team Rapid Transit, and he unfortunately passed away very suddenly in January of 2016, or no, 2017. I'm trying to get my dates right. 2016, 2017. Yeah, no, 2018. I'm sorry. I can't keep track of the years anymore.
I can't either.
2018. So anyways, that happened, and it was a difficult time, and I was trying to figure out what to do, and move forward with kind of life, in general. And I months later, I was actually traveling to Europe for a race, and I had always kind of seen the Ohvales on social media for a while, and because I had a lot of friends in Europe, and obviously they were only in Europe at that point. So I had a friend, Marvin Fritz, who races for Yamaha, for Yamaha Austria Racing and World Endurance, and he had an Ohvale, and I was texting him. I said, hey, do you know anyone at Ohvale at the headquarters? I'd like to maybe get a meeting with them and just talk about the American market and see where they're at. And I was able to, through friends of friends, get connected with them, and I was already over there at that point, and I drove down to Venice, or they're right outside of Venice. I drove down there for a meeting and, gave them the proposal that I put together and talked to them about my plans for, bringing them to America. And kind of like I had a 3-year plan set up, and, I got here and things went way, way faster than what I really originally had planned for. And, the MotoAmerica idea was a concept, and that was like 3 to 4 years down the road, where it's happened in year 2. So it's been there's a lot of growing pains. Ohvale is they expanded their factory. They've been growing as the market's been growing. So it's been a change for them, and definitely something we're trying to keep up with all the demand, because they just can't keep up right now. But that's kind of how it happened. I was just I was trying to find my next path, in life, and how to make a living. And I went this direction for whatever reason. I figured I'd draw upon my racing experience and my I love the sport, and I love the people in it, and it does give me headaches, but I still, at the end of the day, I love motorcycles, and everyone and most people involved in the sport are just like all of us, and they're great people, and I enjoy it. So,
well, we appreciate the fact that you share our same dream and vision, which is to help develop the next American world champions. So hopefully somebody out of this mini cup will see that happen. I wanted to, aside from the younger kids, the younger people that are on it, you had mentioned about Marvin Fritz, and we see Heron a lot. This week we saw a video with Corey Alexander riding on an Ohvale, and he's a tall kid, just like you are, Brandon, and I'm sure you do your share of laps on an Ohvale. The ergonomics on those bikes are such that if you're an adult, you can still ride them.
I mean, correct? I think it's there's a lot of people that get kind of nervous about that. They say, "Oh, it's too small, I can't ride it." And I think it's largely, there are some physical limitations. Like if you're 6'5", yeah, I think you're getting on the limit of like what will fit on an Ohvale, but or if you just have like zero flexibility for some reason, you may struggle a little bit. But I mean, I'm 5'11", and I can ride them all day long. And it doesn't bother me at all. I'm like Peter Hickman, over in the UK, British Superbike rider. He's 6'1", and again, same thing. He's totally comfortable and rides all day long on him. I think it's largely just getting on him and giving him a chance, because once you get comfortable in something, like once you ride something a little bit more and get comfortable, then it becomes more comfortable and more, you kind of get into a groove on something more. Where you first get on something, obviously anything, it feels a little bit foreign and a little bit tougher to ride. And I think the volley is no different. It just takes some getting used to. And the new 2020 190, which is the 190 has always been geared towards youth and adult riders. It's actually an updated chassis where it is a little bit roomier for adults. It's a longer chassis, it's taller. So it's been really well received with adult riders as far as being more comfortable and fitting them better.
Yeah, I mean, it's Corey. I think Corey Alexander is about 6'2" or something. So I mean, he looked pretty comfortable going around on that bike. I want to. We have weekly meetings with the Crave partners who manage MotoAmerica, and we've been talking a lot about the Mini Cup by Motul coming up at this next round at Road America, which the fans are going to be at, and also our Heritage Cup, which we're going to have as well, the vintage bikes. But I wanted to ask you about the riders that have entered, and you said we've got a pretty healthy entry list. Our partners have asked us if there are any rivalries that we can kind of build up. And we know of some of the riders. I mean, I've known about Kayla Yakov for a few years. We know about Jesse James Shedden and, kind of what American Racing's done with their 4 riders they've got. And we've heard a few here and there, Rossi Moore and some of those guys. But do you know, are there any like fierce rivalries that we need to know about so that when, we need to pay attention when they're on the track?
Yeah, I try to stay out of that stuff.
Smart.
It's super tough because I'm like, on one end I'm obviously I'm selling bikes and trying to support my business and do that, but also now I'm involved with helping MotoAmerica kind of manage from a I guess a macro perspective of this Mini Cup thing, and so I do have to remain a little bit removed from I try to at least, but I think there's definitely, all the kids I think get along. I think maybe the rivalries are more with the parents. Kids are all, they're kids. They all just have fun and they ride their bikes and they enjoy it. I know, from a team's perspective, this year you have American Racing Team who, I'm super excited they're involved, and having a World Championship team involved with the Mini Cup and MotoAmerica and just in the paddock in general, I think is good for riders and for the series, and it shows a lot that MotoAmerica is doing the right things. But I think between them and then you have Forza GP Snipers team that are feeling Rossi Moore and Eli Banish, but Rossi for sure is a standout. Last year at the Talent Cup, I think he impressed everybody with his talent, and I think he's for sure got some sights on his back of the other kids as okay, he's the kid to get the to watch and then learn from, and hopefully we'll see some fierce battles at the front. I know there's some other super talented kids, so Rossi is by no means a shoe-in for winning anything. I think there's a lot of kids that are plenty capable of winning, and we'll have some good battles for sure.
It's going to be fun to watch, and I know that's the way Junior Cup is. The first years that we had started out with it, it's still extremely popular, and obviously we promoted it a lot. And it's some of these riders have moved up, and some are even in stock 1000 now and everything. But it's something that everybody seems to gravitate towards to see them. I'm sure the Mini Cup is going to be the same way. We're just about ready to wrap up. I've got one more question for you, and I was telling you I kind of like to tinker. I like to know about these mechanical things. I mentioned I have a YSR 50. So I also have a TTR 125 that's the electric start model. So it's got a lighting coil. So I went on to Baja Design's website and turned it into a dual sport bike. And it's a small little bike, but I kind of like to ride it around the neighborhood. So you probably know where I'm going with this. Is it possible at all to take an Ohvale and make it into a street bike?
For purposes of me being the importer, no.
That's the wrong question to ask you.
Yeah.
Right,
and now I do know of a company in Tennessee called Man in the Box, which is a super popular small bore accessories like online retailer. Some guys own it, really cool guys. They do a lot of fun stuff. They do a lot of cool projects and build a lot of cool bikes like Groms and that sort of thing. They actually have one of our Ohvales, and they have built it into, it is the only street legal Ohvale in the country. They put a different engine in it with the electric start, and they have headlights, tail light, like it's fully street legal. So you'll be seeing more of that somewhere here or there on social media at some point.
It's cool. I see this happen all the time. You see like people that have had a TZ250 or something that was a purpose-built race bike, and then they want to try to turn it into a street bike, and it may not have an ability, a lighting coil, or it has to have a total loss system. But somehow people seem to figure out ways to get them to ride them on the street to go to a bike night or something like that. So.
Oh no, that's right. Yeah, no, I know they swapped out an engine and had a custom header made to fit around the starter motor and all kind. They went through quite a build. So it's pretty cool though.
Hey, Sean.
Pay gobs of money to get it
Sean,
done. Yeah.
Could you possibly get us video of you riding the YSR50 around your neighborhood? I don't know what we could promote with it. Maybe stupidity or something, but I mean, we could definitely do it.
It's like, at this circus when you see well, they don't have it anymore, but the elephant who, balances on the beach ball or whatever. It's a little bit like that. But no, it's fun. I like to do it so the cops can pull me over and ask me, and find out that it's legal to do and I'm not doing anything wrong. So, but Brandon, thank you so much for being on. We got to talk to you a little bit last year at Pittsburgh, as you mentioned, and we enjoyed having you guys there, and love the fact that we've got the Mini Cup happening this year, and hopefully it's on to bigger and better things and even more rounds next year.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys, and thanks for the support. Hopefully I'll see you guys at MotoAmerica, and hopefully you guys can make it down and watch the event.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And to the fans out there, thank you for listening to our podcast. Please subscribe to MotoAmerica Live Plus, our popular subscription streaming service. And also don't forget to get your race weekend tickets. You can go to MotoAmerica.com for that, to sign up for Live Plus, and also to get your tickets for Road America or any of our other rounds coming up. And Road America is the weekend after this one coming with fans. So we hope to see you there.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
everybody.
Thanks.